We're here with Norma Tobin, the president of St. Mary's Historical Society. And before the break, we were talking about the first maternity hospital in Queen Street. Norma?
Mm-hmm. Yes, before the hospital opened, women always gave birth at home. And usually it was just a relative or one of the neighbourhood women just went in to assist her at the time, and that was it. But in those days, there were quite often communities had a woman, it was usually a woman who had already had her family, and she became the maternity nurse.
Like a midwife.
They were always known as granny. Some had formal training, but the majority didn't. And there were three very well-known midwives in St. Mary's in the early days. There were Granny Turner, Dolan and Moffat. And Granny Moffat lived out along Ludnam Road, out near where the pipeline is now, and the other two ladies lived here in the township. But my grandmother, she had her family here in St. Mary's from about 1905 until 1920, and it was only ever one of the neighbourhood women assisted her. But somehow or other they managed to survive. But a lot of women in those days actually died in childbirth, and quite often the child was lost as well. So when the maternity hospital opened and there was trained staff on hand, I think it was sort of more than welcome, but because that didn't come until about the 1930s. Although there was the cottage hospital at Penrith opened in 1895, that's now the Governor Phillip Hospital.
All right. It's still there.
Oh yes, it's still there. It was originally the cottage hospital, then it became known as the Penrith General Hospital, and then because when the Nepean Hospital was opened, it became the Governor Phillip. But even though that hospital was there, women just didn't go to hospital to have their children. It must have been a bit tougher in those days than they are now, because we have these elaborate birthing centres now, and where everything's much more civilised. But it was definitely a difficult time for women. And I can remember when I was 6, my younger sister was born, and my mother had obviously gone into labour late at night, and I remember being moved to my aunt's room at the back of the house, away from Mum's room. Well, she gave birth to my sister in the early hours of the morning, and, you just think, oh, where'd that come from? It was just, people just seemed to take it in their stride, but I take my hat off to them.
Yeah, I remember my brother's, the second one, I don't remember him being born, but the third one, there's, I think, 5 years difference. I remember him, and the rest of them, another 3. And I remember the midwife coming in with a big bag in her hand.
Yes.
And so, she's got the baby with her.
Yes.
She got the baby in the bag.
They brought them with them. Yes, all a bit naive then, but it was very, very difficult times, and I remember sort of around that time a couple of the neighbourhood women died giving birth, and it was just such a natural thing that, again, no antibiotics or
That's right.
sterile situations for them to give birth. So it's, we have come a long way, but
I suppose them days they never thought of cesareans and all this business. Got to be natural birth.
No, so I don't know.
Either do or die, one of them.
No, I think if there were any difficulties, then they just fought to save either the mother or the child, and quite often had to make the choice. But once we had this private hospital, and Dr. Day was here, he was on call if any of the women had difficulties, then it made life a lot easier for the ladies of St. Mary's. But he was quite, I only remember him as quite an elderly man with a shock of white hair, and he was just a really loved by everyone.
That's
you know,
right, yeah.
Because there weren't that many of us here, and he was the only doctor until about, I think about 1943 or 44, his daughter joined him in practice. She had finished at Sydney Uni, Dr. Prudence. She was a lovely young woman too. And she carried on for a time after he passed away in 1953, but then she left St Mary's as well, and it was in the late 50s that the other doctors all started to move into St Mary's, and that's where we are today. But,
Is there many doctors around the area today?
oh, there are a lot.
All
Yes,
right.
yes. It still takes you a long while to see one, but there are a lot. But of course, there's such a big population
Yes,
now, and
a
I
lot of
think
people.
people tend to go to doctors more readily now than what they
Yeah.
did before. You know, they
Now,
toughed it out.
What's the population of St Mary's now?
Oh, I think it must be between 60 and 70,000
Jeez, that much?
people. Mm.
Wow.
Well, there's over 170,000 in all of the Penrith city. It's close to 180,000 now. So I think there must be at least 60,000 in St
In
Mary's.
St Mary's.
Would have to be. But
But different from 2000 in them days, huh?
that's right, yes, it's a very big difference. But I think they usually try to have so many doctors per head of population,
Right.
you know, but I'm not sure what the figures are. But of course, dentistry was in its early stages in those days, and some of the implements they used to
That
pull
must have
out the
been torture.
teeth. And yeah,
Like
we
go
had,
to Georgia Chambers.
yeah. My grandmother had a sister of 25. She was married with 2 little children, and she needed her wisdom teeth removed. And they had only just started to use gas
All right.
to put their patients out while they pulled the teeth. And I don't know whether she had too much gas or what the problem was, but she died having 2 teeth out. Whereas that would be unheard of today.
That's right, yeah.
And so that would have been around 1900 that happened. So it's, you know, things we take for granted today. They were really serious problems for
difficult,
people
yeah.
in those days. Mm. So next time we complain about waiting 4 or 5 hours to see a doctor, I think we should have a little thought for what our forebears went through.
That's right, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, in a way, we're very lucky, and like you said, people take things for granted, but geez, they have a good, not only everything. People, they don't know how lucky they are living in this country. It's still good, although it's not that things are bad, but
Well, it's not ideal,
it's
and I
not,
don't think
but
ever
it's
will
bad.
be,
You
but,
listen to the news; it's all bad news, and for you're not safe anywhere else there. Except here. I hope things don't change, because bit by bit things, you can't even talk to people these days, and they want to sue you. You look at them the wrong way, they want to sue. That's I blame the solicitors for that, of course. The solicitors for that, and copying America, of course.
well, they're the only winners, aren't they?
Yeah. But anyway,
Yeah. So that's it.
that's the end for today. Good on you, Norma. We do thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here every
Thank you.
first Monday of the month, and hope we'll meet again on the first Monday of the month again.
I'll be here.
Thank you, Norma, and look after yourself.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.